Hey everybody, it's your boy Big L PhD, Big L PhD. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to talk about this or to hear what I got to say about this. That horn, if you heard it, was not for me. Somebody was not going through the light. So I want to talk about where these negative feelings come from. I want to talk because if we can, part of the problem or part of the process, I should say, of overcoming negative self-perceptions, low self-esteem, and all that is because we don't understand where the situations are coming from. We don't understand, how we developed these low self-esteem feelings. So I want to talk about that. I want to really kind of nail this down here so we can get an understanding about how we develop these things and what we can do to overcome them. So many of these things are really just childhood traumas. They're childhood traumas. They can come from overbearing parents who put so much pressure on us to be somebody, right? Maybe all your older brothers or cousins or your parents themselves are overachievers and they've all got advanced degrees and they've got businesses and or big sports individuals, and so you feel this constant need, this constant pressure to measure up to their success. And next thing you know, you're putting so much pressure on yourself in order to succeed that you end up paralyzing yourself with fear, right? So this is where some of the thoughts come from. Another place that they come from is in the same realm as abusive parents who tell you that you're ugly, tell you that you're too dark, tell you that you're too light, tell you that you're too short, too dumb. You never measure up to, etc. Right? You'll never measure up. So these are just some of the ideas where they come from. Another one could be, again, with the childhood trauma thing, right? Is you've had a history of failures, messing up, and whether it's your teacher, whether it's your parents, aunts, uncles, caregivers, they harp on these feelings and make your esteem continue to drive further in the bucket. As I said before, failure is part of the process, and we have to learn to embrace it, learn to deal with it. But that's a process in and of itself to understand that. And if you've been surrounded by coaches, other types of caregivers who try to exploit you, then that can be that can cause trauma. You may have been bullied in school for being different, for being the kid who wanted to go to college, or being the kid who was not good athletically, or being the kid who was not good musically, or maybe you were into the arts where everybody else was into athletics, all that kind of stuff, right? All these things are ideas that cause traumatic reactions within the mind to want to protect ourselves. And so that protection mechanism that we develop causes us to be paralyzed by fear. I'm not going to try, because if I try and fail, it's going to reignite many of the pain that I have experienced before, many of the feelings of inadequacy and failure that I had before. So if you have been surrounded by a lack of success and lack of competent caregivers, coaches, aunts, uncles, mothers, fathers, older brothers, sisters, even older brothers and sisters, this trauma comes from a lot of places, right? Even if you're the oldest, you're the eldest, you might have had pressure on you to set an example for your children, for your brothers and sisters, right? You got to set the example. You're the example setter. They're going to follow your lead, right? So that can create pressure on you to make sure that you're dotting every I and crossing every T, and that you're setting a good example. You might even have been the one who's watching them when the parents are at work, right? The parents are at work, and you got to watch your brother and sister, and this is pressure on you because you want to go outside and play like everybody else. But no, you got to be here, sit here and be this parent. And if you mess up, or if they mess up, then they blame it on you. So these things, man, these traumas, no matter where they come from, right? They obviously come from the past, and they can cause a fear of the future, fear of failure, fear to try, fear to exceed, fear to go out on that limb. But if you never go out on the limb, you will never get the fruit. If you never go out on the limb, you will never get the fruit. And you have to wrestle with that on a daily basis to get to where you need to get to. Where does these feelings of fear come from? Where does this negative self-perceptions come from? Where do they come from? So I would ask you to do some digging, do some analysis, do some heavy thinking into what your childhood was like, what your teenage years was like, what happened when you failed a test, what happened when you didn't score the goal, what happened when you missed a note in your piano concerto, what happened when what was the response from caregivers? Were they loving, empathetic, embrace you and say, listen, we love you, man, this is part of the process? Or did they scowl and point the finger and say you're stupid and dumb, right? And is that translating to you to a fear of failure, fear to want to go for your PhD, fear of wanting to go for a higher education, fear of going back to school, period, fear of trying to drive? I know people who don't want to drive because the first time they tried to do it was traumatic. The fear of getting on an airplane, right? Where do these fears come from, right? They come, right? Human beings have so many different phobias, right? And I actually don't agree with many of the fears of phobias, right? We have a fear of phobia over spiders, heights, enclosed spaces, because our ancestors, for whatever reason, developed these as mechanisms to survive, right? We didn't know, you get bit by a spider, you might die, and you don't know, what type of spider until, they became more advanced, but it's still inherent in our DNA that some of us are very fearful of spiders or snakes, or what's that? I can't think of that term, but I'll look it up and I'll probably put it on the screen, where people are scared of those closed, almost like hive type of patterns, configurations. And that's because, when we saw people like that, right, we knew to avoid them because they had some type of parasitic or bacterial infection, right? It's why people get scared of dead bodies and you run away, because this person is deceased and we don't know why they're deceased, whether it's disease or somebody killed them, or the same mechanism that killed them might be around to kill us. That's what. So these traumas are there for a reason. But at the same time, human beings have developed the need and the necessity to overcome those types of traumas. Doctors have to overcome those type of traumas of being scared of blood and seeing people mangled in order to perform surgery. Same thing with paramedics in the field. You have to overcome that, right? So we have these traumas. They come from someplace, and we have to develop, you have to develop, I have to develop, we have to develop the mechanism, the strength to understand where these mechanisms come from, or where these traumas come from, the mechanisms that cause them, and what we can do to overcome them. So first, you have to do some real deep-seated searching as to how you develop this fear of failure, this fear of trying, this fear of whatever, and what you can do, should do, must do in order to overcome it. Because a saying that I heard many years ago was the fear of death never kept anyone from dying. It just keeps you from living. So you're paralyzed by fear, won't try to succeed, won't try to go out on a limb, won't try to make the best of a situation, because you have a fear that was caused by older traumas of other individuals. And recognize that. Do the work. Do the work. Do some deep-seated work into these paralyzing, self-limiting thoughts, and deal with them slowly, right? Every day, recognize these thoughts for what they are, and be active in your counterbalancing of them. When the thoughts come up that you can't do it, remember the time that you did try something and did it. The first time you drove a car, the first time you tied your shoes, the first time you scored a goal, the first time you hit every note when you're playing the piano or violin, the first time that you did whatever. It wasn't easy. You messed up along the way, but you were able to get it together eventually. And so I want you to take that. I want you to take that with you, and just become the best version of yourself that you can be. You can do it. Whether it's going back to school or starting a business, playing a new instrument, you can do it. Dealing with your boss, having a difficult conversation with your parents over the trauma they caused you, difficult conversation with coaches, difficult conversations with, again, your boss to ask for that raise, whatever. You can do it. Plan, counteract the mental blocks, and go for it. Much love and peace, everyone.